Good afternoon. Welcome to the show. Let's see. Got everything right here. Okay. I'm Mary Grace. This is Real Talk with Mary Grace. It's Thursday, the 28th of October, 2021. Come on in and welcome to the show. I have been away for a while. I did a broadcast yesterday. So if you've missed me, please make sure you go and watch that. Apologize for the coughing. Still getting over the Rona. Welcome, everybody. Good to see you. As you're coming in, be sure and tag people that you know, especially on Facebook. I think you can do that on YouTube as well. We're live on YouTube, Facebook, Cloud Hub, Channel 111, and on Twitter, Real Mary Grace 1. Hold on, I'm going to mute for just a second. Okay, so frog in the throat, pray for me. I've been doing pretty well, but still just a little, a little bit of congestion. Okay. Oh, Delia, I think there was a miscommunication. Okay, tell me what you need from yesterday and I'll get it to you. Okay, so let me get going here. I want to tell you what we're going to talk about today, and then I'm going to go over a couple of things from yesterday. I talked yesterday about my experience having COVID, and then about my dad's experience having COVID, and that was a long show. I definitely encourage you to watch it. I gave a lot of very practical information, and I'm going to give a couple of updates today about some of the things that we talked about. I got some more information from people. And then also, I'm going to talk a little bit about just the current state of affairs. I mentioned yesterday that people need to really start thinking about getting out from under the medical industrial complex. And I'm going to go a little more deeply into that today and into the whole concept of being dependent on a system. I wanted to give you some thoughts about that. And that has the title of today's show, Leaving Egypt for Good, is really going to focus on that. And I'm going to touch a little bit about some of the things that President Trump has been saying about voting, some of the revelations that are coming out about fraud in Wisconsin. I'm going to try to touch on that. And then a little bit about the mandates and how that's going. So let's see. Delia. Okay, so Millie had info to send you. Okay, if you don't get that, Delia, I don't know what happened, but go ahead and just send me what you have so far, and then we can add that. I can always add that later. Okay, so I'm talking to Delia on YouTube. She's going to help compile. She's helping to compile the notes for what I discussed yesterday. It was pretty extensive and detailed about my own personal experience going through coronavirus, and then my dad, who's 84, who is recovering. And we will get you that information. We have some links to post. There's a lot of information that's come in. People have given us good feedback in the chat, in the comments. When you watch the show from yesterday, I recommend that you watch it on YouTube on Mary Grace Media, so that you can click on live chat and go in and just watch the chat from that show. And I think that you'll gather some very helpful tips and information that the listeners were putting into that chat. There was also some information on the Facebook broadcast in that chat as well. I'll be honest with you, when I go back to Facebook and I try to look at your comments, I can't get that far. I can get down to about 30 or 40 comments, and then I just can't see anything else beyond that. And so if you if you are ever putting a comment on Facebook and I don't respond, that's why. I just can't, no matter what. If I use my computer, my iPad, anything like that in the app, I just can't see the comments. I can see them live when I'm doing the show. I can see your comments, but I'm not going to be able to stop and respond to all of them during the show. So just know that if you do if you do leave a comment on Facebook and I don't respond to it or nobody else does, that's why. And so if it's urgent, if you have a question, the best way to get me is to go to info@marygracemedia.com. And as I mentioned yesterday, I am asking for your cooperation and understanding because there's like a brain fog thing that happens with COVID, and the processing just takes a little bit of uh, time. I'm not firing as quickly in the processing department as I normally do, but that's coming back. It's not a permanent thing, just like the whole smell thing. It's not permanent. It's just one of those little things. And let's face it, I was sick for 3 weeks. And so I think anytime you are sick like that, it just it takes a little while to bounce back. Now the good news is my dad, he's 84. I described yesterday to you the treatments that we got for him, including the monoclonal antibodies. The Somebody just mentioned monoclonal antibodies on YouTube. I would 100% absolutely recommend that your son go ahead and get on the monoclonal antibodies if he is positive. I wouldn't even wait. Um, I mean, I think if, let's see, your son's not doing well. Yeah, I would go ahead and get him on that, Lisa. I wouldn't wait. And are you in California? Because if you are, please tell me where the monoclonal antibodies are being administered because I've had people ask me that. Okay, so update us on that. Let us know. I got the antibodies. My dad got the antibodies. I highly recommend it. I think it really is a big help. As long as your son isn't um, doing too badly. Okay, you're in Alaska. I think that if a person's oxygen saturation is too low, they aren't eligible for the antibodies. So definitely go back and watch my show from yesterday. I think it would be really important to do that. A couple of things that I wanted to update you with regarding yesterday's show. One of the things that I said was that the nebulizer for budesonide is available by prescription only. Some people in my chat on Telegram were saying otherwise. They were saying that they were able to get a nebulizer from Amazon and from Walmart. And I want to be clear about something. There are different nebulizers there are different things that pop up when you type in nebulizer. I think there are some sort of handheld devices, and I don't know that that is exactly what you need. I'm not an expert on this, but when I was reading about the budesonide and when I was looking at the packaging, it said that you needed a nebulizer that has a what do you call it? A thing. It's like what's that thing that goes over your face, your nose? It has to have that thing and it straps on, and it's a machine that sits on the table. And the packaging for the budesonide said, do not use a ultrasonic nebulizer. So the main thing that I would ask when you get a nebulizer, or if you're reading the reviews on Amazon, it would be the same kind of nebulizer that you would use for somebody who has asthma. So to administer albuterol, budesonide, things like that. It's not just like a warm mist kind of thing. That's not what it is. So the one that we have, you put the liquid into the little cup, and then you attach that. You call that a CPAP? I thought a CPAP was the actual machine that helps you breathe at night. The cup that goes over your face. So you put the liquid in and you close it up and you put this thing over your face, and then you turn the machine on, and it turns the liquid into a mist that goes into your lungs. Okay. So that is my non-medical explanation of how the nebulizer works. But if you can get one without a prescription, I highly recommend it. Um, yeah, I'm confused about why people are putting the word CPAP into the chat. I'm just trying to describe that thing that goes over your face. It just looks like a little plastic mask. Okay. Um, so, uh, let's see. I have a nebulizer. Don't think it was a CPAP. Yeah, let's leave the CPAP conversation out of this. That this is not a CPAP. It's a nebulizer. It's literally a nebulizer. So it's a nebulizer. Hold on, let me see if I can find a picture. Because I this is important. Um, Nebulizer machine. Okay, so this is what it. See that little mask thing? See the cup? That's what ours came with, right? And then the machine sits on the table like this, and there's a little tube that attaches to the cup. So that thing on top of there, that little white tube, that is sort of like an inhaler that you would put in your mouth and breathe it in. So again, I have not used the ones from Amazon. Um, I think, okay, somebody on Facebook gave us some information. Unic Life, UNICLIFE compressor nebulizer is amazing for this. Sold on Amazon. Got it. Okay. Yeah. So thank you for that. So again, this one's $89. I told you that getting prepared for this is not cheap. It's mostly out of pocket for a lot of people. Now I've had people tell me that they've been able to have their prescriptions, that they've been having people that people have had their doctor call in their prescriptions and that it's been covered by insurance. So everybody's situation is going to be different. That's just the way it is. So for some people, you may get all of your prescriptions covered and you end up paying $20 out of pocket for all of it. For other people, if you don't have insurance or if your insurance refuses to cover these things, or something like that, you could be spending $500 or more. And again, make sure that you're looking for good RX coupons because they do help, especially if you cannot get your insurance to pay for certain parts of it. All right. So go back and watch yesterday's show. Now, what I did want to say too is that somebody put a comment on YouTube and said that you can actually buy the oxygen concentrator on Amazon. And so I mentioned yesterday that my dad went on oxygen, that the prescription was called in for him after hours by Synergy Health, and it was delivered that night. And so it's like a rental thing, and it goes on his insurance, right? And so that's that. So typically it's available by prescription only. I called our medical supply place that provides breathing equipment. I talked to someone there and asked them, can I walk in and rent an oxygen concentrator without a prescription from a doctor? And they said no. Now, I've had some people tell me that you can go, that anybody can go in, walk in off the street and get oxygen and rent the tanks or the concentrator. In my town, at the supply place that is down the street from me, they said you can't do that. And that is one of the things that I recommend that you have in place in your plan. So call your doctor ahead of time, ask them, if I were to get this or the flu or whatever, are you prepared and willing to call in oxygen for me to get at home? I would have that. I would have a very specific plan for that. Okay. And so but if you want to, if you prefer to go ahead and just buy it and have one at your home that is just available for your community, for your neighbors, your family, whatever. The one I found one, it's $389. So, again, a lot of what people are doing right now is out of pocket. If that's in your budget and it gives you peace of mind to know that you could buy that and have it available, then that by all means do that. It's up to you. Okay. So Delia said she sees one that's 250 on Amazon. So you're just going to have to shop around, look at the look at the different reviews for sure. Um, Okay, so Pat on YouTube is saying, I called my doctor yesterday and she said, no, unless I'm in the hospital. I'm doctor shopping right now. So there you go. So, Pat, like I said, for my dad, Synergy called in the prescription for him and had it in, he faxed it in, and the oxygen was here that night. So it may be worth getting established as a patient with them. Again, it's an out of pocket expense. I totally get that. Um, but, we're talking about something that could save somebody's life. So let's just keep that perspective here when we're talking about out of pocket expenses. So those are some things I wanted to update you on. The other thing, yesterday, I forgot to tell you that I was telling you that I had this debilitating nausea, and I ended up getting Pepcid AC, and that seemed to help with the nausea. So put that on your list for your COVID kit. Pepcid AC. I got the generic, but that seemed to help a lot. Okay. So now I think that I don't want to debate. I see people in the comments saying that you shouldn't be on oxygen, whatever. I'm not here to debate that. I want to tell you that I'm here to tell you what happened with my family and how I kept my 84-year-old dad out of the hospital and how we prevented him from getting pneumonia, which is a very high risk situation for somebody who's old. My dad has diabetes. He has high blood pressure, and he's overweight, and he's 84. And so, when his oxygen levels started to drop, and we talked to our provider at Synergy, that is what they recommended. And again, you can go back to yesterday's show and watch more details about what happened there. What I know is that my dad is doing better and that he didn't get pneumonia, that his lungs are clear, and that he's on the mend. This morning, his oxygen level was up to 97, and he was outside on the deck with the leaf blower after breakfast. And so this is our situation, and I'm providing the information so that people can make their own decisions. I'm urging people to prepare in the best way that you feel is going to work for your family. I am not a doctor. I'm not here to give you medical advice. I'm not here to treat anybody medically. I'm here to tell you that the things that I did with the tools that I had in place ahead of time and the resources that I had available to me, all of those decisions that we made for our medical care managed to keep my dad and me from going to the hospital and getting sent into what I would now consider the modern day version of the gas chambers. All right. So again, everybody's going to have an opinion about things that they think would work better. And it's up to everybody to make that decision for themselves. Okay. Now, let's see. Let me just check my notes here. I do want to just emphasize that a couple of things that are always going to be an issue when you're dealing with a senior citizen. And that is the risk of pneumonia, the dehydration, and the risk of pneumonia, any kind of infection, and dehydration. And that is something that we were keeping a very, very close eye on with my dad. Now, that would be the case if they get a stomach flu, if they get the flu, if they get a cold, anything like that, because it's just, it's a more fragile system that you're dealing with for the most part. And so that is a really key thing to look out for. And so the treatment for my dad was a little more aggressive than for me. I didn't have to go on oxygen, and so just keep that in mind. And if you have risk factors yourself, that is something that you're going to have to weigh for yourself. Would I be at risk? Do I have COPD? Am I overweight? Am I a smoker? Those are the kinds of things that you'll have to weigh. Do I have a history of pneumonia? Do I have a history of lung problems? Those kinds of things. And so, this is, in case it's not obvious by now, we're in a situation where people need to be proactive, where people need to take their health and their well-being very seriously and take proactive steps to make sure that you get what you need for yourself and your loved ones when sickness occurs. And I would say that includes not just getting COVID, but other things as well. We've seen some horrific situations in which medical people, doctors, are actually refusing to treat people who have not gotten the shot. I mean, that's insane. And so, this is the time, if you have a doctor, if you have a provider that you have any doubts about, pick up the phone and have a conversation with them, just like one of our listeners did. Call them and say, hey, if I get in a situation with a respiratory issue and I need oxygen, are you willing to prescribe it at home? Et cetera, et cetera. If I come into your office, how am I going to be treated if I have chosen not to get the shot? I think these are important. These are important questions to ask. And I'm going to touch on something that I'm seeing in the chat right now, because this is an important topic as well. I see people saying to take your vitamins, to take supplements, and that is important. I'm on a prebiotic, a probiotic. I'm on organic green superfoods. I have a very good protein source with amino acids, all of those things. And so someone pointed out, one lioness pointed out in YouTube, she said, keep in mind, not all vitamins and minerals are created equal. Most on the market are loaded with fillers and a waste of money. That's absolutely 100% true. And that is why I use superfoods from my own company. And we have a number of the supplements that people need. They're food-based, organic, food-based supplements. They're made with whole food. There's no fillers, no binders, no artificial colors, no artificial sweeteners, none of that. And so when you take the supplements, they are going to be absorbed into your body better. Your body is they're bioavailable so that your body can absorb and assimilate and make use of the nutrients that you're putting in there. The truth is, most vitamins that you get from the drugstore, from a big box store, they have rancid oils because they're produced very quickly, and they are not bioavailable, which means that when you go to the bathroom, that vitamin capsule is going to end up in the toilet, undigested. Okay. Somebody's asking me about the Z Stack from Dr. Zelenko. I trust Dr. Zelenko. I have not used his Z Stack, but I've had listeners who told me that they have. And so I think that whatever he puts out is going to be high quality. Dr. Stella Emanuel is also developing supplements as well. So, again, it's up to you to read the ingredients, find out how the supplements are produced, where they're produced, no matter who it is. And those of you who want to get supplements from me and you want to get the superfoods, just write to me. It's info@marygracemedia.com, info@marygracemedia.com. And I'll give you a promo code so you can save money off of your order. We do have a number of supplements, and then our Core 4 nutrition package is just absolutely essential. Our greens and vegetable shakes, our our super meal shakes. We've got your vegetables and your fruits, your adaptogenic mushrooms. Everything is sprouted. It's just very, very high quality. And so that is what that's what I'm using. Okay, thanks for checking in, Clyde. Good to see you. All right. Yeah, so thank you, One Lioness. Yeah, it's absolutely worth the money. So this is where I was going yesterday with my conversation about the money that we spend, the money that we spend on food and our medical care. As a society, we have gotten lulled into this dependency mindset, this very passive, dependent. The system will take care of me. I don't want to spend anything out of pocket to invest in taking care of my body, which the Bible says is a temple. We have gotten into this very dangerous, unhealthy mindset of thinking that the system is supposed to take care of you, and of believing and trusting the media when they tell you that a certain food-like substance is loaded with vitamins and minerals. They're all synthetic. Getting hooked on fast food and thinking that you're actually nourishing your body. These are things that I want to really encourage my listeners to think deeply about, and to consider, an about face in your mindset about that, because we are given the resources, we are given the we are given the ability to make these decisions. We are in the information age. There's so much information out there, but the thing that we need as Christians is we need discernment so that we can know how to look at the information and filter the truth from the lies. And I'll give you an example. Back in the late 70s and early 80s, the vegetable, the soy and corn industries came up with a massive anti-fat campaign, anti-saturated fat campaign, because they had a lot of grains to sell. And so if you remember, all of a sudden, saturated fats were bad for you, and everybody was plagued with cholesterol problems and fat problems, and all of these fat-free foods started to emerge on the market. And people were told not to eat butter, they were told not to eat eggs, they were told not to eat whole milk. All of the things that are in the form that God made them, all of a sudden, we were being told as a society that those things were bad for you. And fast forward now into the year 2021, and people still have that mindset. They still believe that they have cholesterol problems. They still believe that fat is bad for you, that it's evil, that you can't eat a whole egg, but instead you have to eat just egg whites. It's insane. They believe that you should drink skim milk. They believe that margarine is better than butter. Margarine is like a synthetic petroleum product, guys, made from like vegetable, like since when does a vegetable produce oil? Seriously, think about that. But the point is, it was an entire marketing campaign that was aimed at shifting public behavior. And it was so successful that it created generations of obese, overweight, very sick people who got fat by eating fat free. Can you see how twisted that is? We know now, the people who are aware, who are doing the research, we actually know that healthy fats are essential in your diet and in brain development and in an anti-inflammatory lifestyle. And we know that fat-free is a complete and total myth. And if you just look back to the time from before that campaign got into full swing, go back and look at the TV shows and the movies from the 70s and the early 80s and look at the body composition of the people in those films. I'll give you a good example. Do you guys remember the movie Fame? Remember that one? Fame, I'm gonna live forever. Remember that one? That movie. Go back and look at the actors in that movie, all of whom were pretty rail thin. And there was one kid in the movie who was a little bit pudgy. And he was like the nerdy computer synthesizer kid. And it was really just teenage baby fat that he had. He wasn't obese by any stretch of the imagination. Well, they did a remake of the movie Fame several years ago, less than 10 years ago, I think. And I watched that movie and I was astonished because even there were, I would say 90% of the characters, the dancers, were overweight. Some were even obese. And here we are, it's a movie about dancers, about performing artists, and the norm was obesity and a very high unhealthy BMI. And it was the same concept, a remake of the movie, and the body types have completely changed. So this is a topic that I think that people really need to be aware of, because the food is killing people. The way that the food is made, the way that it's grown, the way that it's marketed. I think one of the most damaging things that you can do to your body is put the standard American diet foods into it. You can do so much good for your body if you shift away from that and from believing the lies that you've been told about even things like fat. Salt is another one. Your body needs salt. It needs salt in its natural form, like Himalayan sea salt. It's so full of minerals and electrolytes. Your body needs it. And yet people have been told, especially the very people who need it, have been told that they should never touch salt again. It's insane. It's insane. Okay, let me read this comment that somebody put up on Facebook. All right, so Nancy on Facebook says, I want to share Medicare Part B will pay for a nebulizer, the cups, and the medications for it. And those on Medicare, if you have a prescription, go to the pharmacy that carries them and also has the ability to bill Part B. Okay, great info that nobody told me, found out in the nick of time and saved me so much money. That's interesting because my dad has Medicare Part B, but the pharmacy didn't pay for his nebulizer. They did use a coupon, but they didn't pay for it. I should go check with them. That's good to know. One thing I wanted to say about the nebulizer is if you're going to get it from a pharmacy, and even the budesonide, before you have the doctor call in the prescription, call around and make sure that the pharmacy carries that, or that they can get it. So if you're not already sick, you can have a little time if your preferred pharmacy needs to order it. But check that before you get the doctor to call in the prescription. Okay, let me go back to your comments about what I was saying about the food supply. Okay. So Yeah. Somebody says what is labeled as vegetable oil is actually canola oil, aka rapeseed, which has been banned in many European countries. Yeah, these vegetable oils, I have to tell you, they have to. Um, they're most of them are rancid before you even open them because of the oxidation that occurs in the processing. Because the oils are so rapidly processed with heat that that the molecular structure breaks down and they oxidize before they're even bottled. So if you're using corn oil, canola oil, soy oil, any of those, you're literally um, speeding up your own demise. So I recommend that you ditch those like immediately and look at palm oil, avocado oil, things that already are oily, right? Like the palm kernels are already oily. Olives are oily. Avocados are oily. They're very high fat. They don't have to work hard to get fat out of an avocado. It's literally fat. Think about that. And I would also say look for cold pressed. That makes a difference because the way that that things are processed, cold pressed means that they do it very slowly and it doesn't heat up the oil and cause oxidation. So just something to think about. Uh, okay, yeah, Pat is saying that. Okay, so what they did during the fat free push is that fat adds flavor. And what they did to make up for the loss of flavor is that they started putting sugar and even worse, high fructose corn syrup, which is another corn byproduct, into all the foods to increase the flavor. Now, one of the things that Dr. Mercola reported on years ago is that people are getting fatty liver disease, and there are people who don't even drink alcohol. And it's because of the amount of high fructose corn syrup that they're putting into their body. It's stressing the liver. So it's the equivalent of being an alcoholic. Just something to think about. Okay. Uh, One lioness says an overweight, dumbed down population makes for a lazy population unwilling to stand up for tyranny. Yeah, I am going to agree with you 100% on that, and I'm going to talk a little bit about that in just a minute. Okay. Vicky says my husband came out of the food matrix and lost 100 pounds eating keto. My son just started eating keto and it helps his bipolar greatly. Yeah, because you're introducing more fats into your body. Now, one of the things that I would say about keto, my observation is that keto, because it's mostly meats and dairy, uh, if I were doing keto, I would be choosing organic, non-GMO, grass-fed, grass-farmed um, dairy and meats. Because if you're not, if the foods that you're eating have been fed grains, then it's the same thing as if you're eating those genetically modified grains because the animals are eating those things and they're laced with pesticides and genetically modified grains and something else. What was I going to tell you? That it was uh, I'll think of it in just a second. Pesticide antibiotics. They're just pumped full of antibiotics. Um, Not the grains, but the meats. All right, especially if they're grown in factories, like factory farmed animals. Um, so uh, soy products messes up men's testosterone levels. Okay, one line it says palm plantations are destroying the Amazon. Okay, I didn't realize that. The thing about cooking in olive oil is I do know that it has a very low smoke point, and so it's not actually meant for cooking. It's meant for dressings and for like drizzling on warm foods, because when an oil starts to smoke, it oxidizes, and that's where you get the that's where you get free radicals into your system. Okay, that's why cooking with coconut oil or avocado oil is better because they have a higher smoke point. Just something to think about. Um, okay. Yeah, you remember all that fat-free stuff? Let me just read your comments. Eminem said, I stopped eating anything with corn syrup. I lost 20 pounds. I'm off of blood pressure meds too. Yeah. And here's the thing, guys. The superfoods that we have is an answer to a lot of these issues. They don't have added sugar. There's no GMOs. It's all organic. The production quality, the growing and production quality is just completely off the charts. So write to me if you want to get the superfoods. It's very simple. It makes your life so simple too. It is way simpler, in my opinion, than keto. Some people love keto and it works for them. But like I said, just think about the sources of the food that you're getting. But this is so easy. And people do lose weight. Delia's still here, right? I think Delia lost, I think, yeah, there you are. 61 pounds. So, okay. Let's see. Okay. Now that's the nutritional component. I want to get into a bigger view of things. Now I want to shift because I was thinking about what I said yesterday about the medical industrial complex and how people have gotten into this. They've been lulled into this complacency of thinking that um, uh, the company, the government, the system is supposed to take care of them. And that wasn't really the case in Western civilization, really until the Industrial Revolution, until people started moving into cities. And then, of course, during the war, during the Depression, more and more people came into cities and they started getting factory jobs. They started working away from their farms and homes, and they got into systems that took care of them. It was like if you worked in a factory, you went to the company store, the company provided the housing. It basically was like a return to serfdom. And the result of that is that we have a society that has grown increasingly dependent on the system. And you may be thinking, oh, she's talking about welfare. I'm not on welfare. That's not actually what I'm talking about. I'm talking about being dependent on any kind of system to meet your needs, whether it's your employer. I have a job, I have good insurance, I have benefits, I have da 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 da. Maybe even housing. Now, I'm not saying those are bad things, but I want to bring your awareness to the mindset that develops when people are a part of those systems. And people are a big part of our country is a part of systems like that, whether you're working for the government or a big corporation or any system that has taken over the cost of those particular needs. It creates a dependency that, whether you like it or not, has a profound influence on the day-to-day decisions that you make. And I'll give you an example. I talked about this yesterday. The situation with COVID, with people who are trying to take care of everything up front. I said, this is not your typical situation where you just call the doctor and say, I have these symptoms. Can you call in the prescription and I'll go pick it up or I'll get it delivered? Where that is the typical mindset that people have gotten into. And it's a result of just putting people into systems that become a kind of a nanny state that takes care of you. And we're seeing that kind of in spades right now, because the very system that people have participated in for so long is now turning on them. And now a lot of these systems are making a condition, making the jab a condition for you to stay in that system. And what's happening is that people are panicking because they're in a system that has been taking care of them. And now they're being told that they're going to be ejected from the system if they don't participate under the new rules. And so it's created this incredible tension and distress in our country. And I've been thinking a lot about it because I think, and a lot of people think, that it's actually creating an opportunity. What do I mean by that? Well, let's think about something that happened few thousand years ago, and that is when the Israelites in the Bible were enslaved by the Egyptians during the time of Moses. They were slaves. They were making bricks. They were performing slave labor building the Egyptian empire. And it was not an easy way to live. But they had been in Egypt for a couple of generations, and they had gotten settled into the system. So even though the Egyptians were hard taskmasters and the things that they demanded were backbreaking labor, there were many people among the Israelites who had just gotten used to that system. They were just part of that system. And Moses answered the call from God to bring the people of God out of Egypt. And you can go back and read the story. It's very dramatic. If anybody ever watched the Ten Commandments, you know a lot of the story already. But there are some things about the story that I've been thinking about because I think that America right now and a lot of the Western civilization is in a similar situation. Because as a society, we have actually settled into a form of serfdom and slavery. Anytime you're beholden to a system that has control over how you're allowed to take care of your body, what you can feed your family, whether you can feed your family, whether you can have money to pay for your house or whatever it is, a social credit system, a credit score system, anything like that, you're actually part of a system of slavery. It's a type of slavery. Would you guys not agree? And I believe that we're actually in a time, in an opportunity to break free from that and to break free from that mentality. And it's extremely uncomfortable. I mean, think about it. If you go back and you look at what happened during the time of the Israelites leaving Egypt, I mean, think about this. You know, Moses says he's going to lead you and your people out of captivity. And they were told, okay, it's time to go. And the interesting thing is they didn't carry a lot with them. But one thing they did take with them was actually the riches of the Egyptians. They were told to go to the Egyptians and get their gold and silver and their wealth and take it with them. Do you guys know that? And I think that if you really think about the story of the Israelites being delivered from the Egyptians, there's a lot that God wants people to see here, because people have the mindset that they're losing everything in this process of being ripped away from the system, from being decoupled from the serfdom that has become the norm in our society. Well, what if it's the other way around? What if God is giving you the signal that it's actually time to decouple from that system, and while you're at it, to take the wealth of that system with you? I'm talking about a wealth transfer that God wants for his people. Think about that. What if this is an opportunity to break free from that? What if this is an opportunity to take advantage of the wealth transfer, to leave the system with the spoils of your captors? I realize this may be a little bit out there for some of you, but I hope that some of you are following this and that it gets you thinking. It's a little bit deep. Now, one of the things that we know about the Israelites is that when they parted the Red Sea, first of all, they had to actually take action. They had to get up and go. and walk out of Egypt in order for God to bring them to the shores of the Red Sea. And it wasn't until they were walking right into the sea that God parted the sea. So think about that. There are a lot of people who are stuck in inertia, and they're sitting here and they're saying, nothing's happening. Nothing's ever going to happen. When is somebody going to come and save the day? Well, Moses was right there. God provided Moses, but Moses couldn't drag people out of their houses and get them to march down to the shores of the Red Sea. They had to do that themselves. They had to pick up, they had to go to the Egyptians, say, hey, give me your gold and silver. We're out of here. And then they had to gather their families and their livestock and their children and whatever they brought with them and go. That was up to them. And so think about where you are right now and what opportunities you're being given to break free of that system. Think about it. And it's an interesting dynamic, because the thing that started to happen even after the Israelites escaped the Egyptians is that a lot of people wanted to go back. They were so disgruntled and disillusioned with what was happening out in the desert, basically because of their own choices, that they started grumbling and saying, oh, we would rather go back to Egypt. And I see that happening with a lot of people. People are in such a state of inertia, and they're so comfortable with what's been happening under this system of captivity that they're not even willing to go on this uncharted journey that God has for them. Is that you? Are you in that situation? Are you being called to pick up and go and leave that system and go into the promised land that God has for you? And are you kicking and dragging your feet and saying, I want to stay in Egypt. I want to stay in the system. The system took care of me. Think about it. I think it's worth thinking about right now, because we're at a time in our nation where opportunity is just staring people in the face. Is it comfortable? No. Is it scary? Yeah, it is. Do we have God on our side? Absolutely. Has God let us down before? No, he hasn't. Is this the time? Is this the end time? Is God destroying America? No, he's bringing America back stronger. And I propose to you that one way he's doing that is by allowing people to make decisions to break free of that system that has dumbed them down and made them dependent and lazy. That's what I think is happening right now. And my question to you is, are you going to participate? Are you going to be frozen in the headlights of fear of what will happen if you break free from your captor? What are you going to do? Okay, let me look over at your comments here. Let's see. I'm going to go all the way down to the end. Yeah. So somebody has a good comment here. It says, takes time to turn a ship of state and avoid a civil war. Personally, I think it's brilliant what's going on. Yeah. I was thinking about this. What is happening right now in our nation? It really is kind of like moving a ship. It's not easy. Like if you've ever seen, these cruise ships in harbors, they're massive, and they have to actually pull them out with tugboats, and then they like turn them around, and then the ship powers up and has to move. So, it's a big undertaking, but are you going to be one of the people that are you going to be one of the people that um, that cooperates with God and looks for the adventure that He's bringing out of this, um, but or are you going to just cling to the system? It's a scary place to be. I don't know if you guys know my my situation. I was in teaching for 12 years, and I really had a strong sense that God was bringing me out of that. And it was a little scary because, I had a pension that I was contributing to. I had insurance. I had a regular paycheck. All those things that are kind of comfortable. Now, one thing that I realized, I looked at my situation in teaching, and I realized, that there was no upward mobility. The only way really to increase your salary significantly was to go into administration. And then I also looked around, and I looked at the people that I was teaching with, and I kind of saw my future, and I didn't like it at all. And I'm not saying that there aren't some good teachers out there, but a lot of the people are in the system just waiting for their retirement and their pension. And I knew that that wasn't me. That's not how I was wired. And so I so I had a contract. I was a reading specialist. My contract wasn't renewed because I was like the last hire in the school. And I knew that God was telling me, don't go back. And it was very hard. I mean, it was tempting to go and apply for other jobs because I was in demand as a reading specialist. I could have gone anywhere. And I stepped away from that. And, from that point on, since that time, I have been independent. I have been an entrepreneur. I haven't gone back into a employer-employee system since then. It's been challenging. I will tell you that. And I've learned to trust in God in ways that I never thought I would. But I wouldn't go back. And I'm not saying that having a job and being in a system is a bad thing. What I'm saying is that it's very easy to get into the inertia that a system like that fosters, to think that that is your provider, that the insurance is your answer, that the pension and whatever it is that you get from that system is your anchor and your rock. And I think that when the reason that people get into trouble is that they lose sight of who God is in their life, because it's so much easier to put your faith in the system. I mean, I found myself doing that. It's very easy to do. I'm not judging anybody who's ever been in that situation. So let me just read your comments here. Yeah. This is a hard conversation. I mean, it's not easy because, we're not back in the agricultural days where everybody lived on their farm and was just independent. But I think that it's possible to find a balance, to find a balance with that. And the thing about America is that we have so much ingenuity, we have so much creativity, we have so much grit and determination, and people. If people are willing to take their eyes off of the system and what the system provides for them and really look to God to show them what's possible, I think there's no limit to what we can do in this country. It might mean that you break away and become part of an employee-owned company, where you're contributing to something that is part of your future, and not building someone else's future as an employee, as just an employee, something like that. Because we need people who do work. We need people who go to airlines and are there when you go to check in for your flight, things like that. I'm not advocating for some pie in the sky utopian situation where everybody just goes off to their own little house and doesn't participate in society. I'm talking about a mindset. I'm talking about the way that things are done. Our country is overdue for a massive shift and for a massive mindset shift away from what we believe is our provider and our security. Are you guys tracking with me? It's kind of a heavy conversation today. But I think we're really in a place of opportunity, you know? I really do. And the people that are going to come out of this stronger are the ones that are thinking this way, that are asking God, okay, what next? What is it that that you have for me and my family? How can we navigate this in a way that brings glory to you, and that gets us out of the fear system? Because that's really what it is. Once you get locked into a system like that, they sort of have you, they have you in the grip of fear, right? And that's what they're doing. That's how they're trying to extort people with these mandates and saying, well, you are no longer going to be able to, you're no longer going to be able to feed your family if you don't comply with this one rule that we just made up. And so I would very sincerely ask, is that true? Am I so dependent on this particular entity, that I can't take a stand for, that I'm not willing to take a stand for the principle, that is much bigger than what this entity is trying to force me to do? And so I'm going to leave it at that right now, because I could go down a whole nother rabbit hole about that. But that's just what I wanted to put to you today, to think about really what kind of opportunities is God bringing us to. And, when people say, I don't have a choice, I think that is an open invitation to take a very deep look at what that means. I don't have a choice. I had to get the shot. I didn't have a choice. Think about what you're saying there. Just think about that. Okay, I want to... So somebody made a comment on my YouTube yesterday when I was talking about being sick and going out and doing some things, by myself, like going to the pharmacy, going to get the nebulizer, things like that. And they were saying, I can't believe that you don't have friends and a community that would go do that stuff for you. And I was thinking a lot about it because, or neighbors, right? I was thinking about it and I was like, am I really that isolated? In some ways, the answer is yes, because I'm living in a community that I'm in a situation where, I've lost a lot of friends, because of where I stand politically. I'm in a very liberal area. I know people who've actually been shunned when they told their greater community that they had COVID. It was insane. And now I'm not saying that some of my friends here would do that. I'm just saying that the pool that I can pick from locally is not that big. I also have friends who are, like one friend that I could call, she is out of town a lot, taking care of her elderly father. Our neighbors, the neighborhood that I live in is my parents' neighborhood. A lot of those people are really old. Like there's no one that I could call and say, hey, go to Walgreens at 10 o'clock at night and go get me this thing. It's just not feasible. But the other thing is I'm fiercely independent. I am an introvert. So, like, I know some of my neighbors, I know some of their names, but I'm not that person that's gonna, like, bring the neighborhood together. That's just not my thing. And, and most of the friends that I have, like, I have friends that would drop everything and go to the pharmacy for me at midnight. They're in different states. So that's kind of the situation I was in. And so, for example, when I got Synergy, when I talked to Brian from Synergy, it was like 9:30 at night. And that was because a friend facilitated that conversation, but she's in Florida. And, if she had been here, she would have been the one to go to the 24-hour pharmacy at midnight to go get the medications for my dad. I was the one that went and did that because that was the choice. Now, in the situation that I'm in, also, I will say that I was describing how I went to get the budesonide and I went to get the nebulizer. Um, at that point, my dad had COVID, and I would have crawled over broken glass to go get him what he needed, regardless of how sick I was. And the person who made the comment was saying, you went out and you could have been contagious. Yeah, that's true. It's absolutely true. But we're at war, and I had to make a decision. I made a decision to go do those things to take care of my dad, regardless of what was going to happen when I was out in public. I did wear a mask, even though I wasn't sneezing or coughing, or I didn't have a runny nose or anything like that. But knowing that I was positive, I did actually wear a mask because that's when you should wear one. But I just wanted to bring that up because, you know, it's a different situation. Like we're in a different time. And in the past, I would have, I think I probably would have just called somebody and said, I'm really sick. Can you help me? And I think that, I mean, I actually did have a couple. Let me back up here. I did have friends who dropped off food. I was also using grocery delivery, things like that. Um, but in the specific instances that I was describing where I went out, it was just not a situation where I could send somebody else, whether it's because I had to deal with the pharmacy and the insurance, et cetera, et cetera. Okay. So I wouldn't consider myself a reckless person that was going out infecting everybody. I just did what I had to do, and that's just life. And so but I do have friends. They're just not necessarily in the same town. I do have a few friends in the same town. It just wasn't a situation where I could call on them in those specific moments. So for the person who made that comment, I hope that clarifies. Um, you know, I have a lot of friends. I have friends who were praying for me through this entire ordeal. I had people calling me and texting me and that kind of thing. But I just wanted to clarify that because those of you who know me, I'm not a reckless person. I wasn't out, randomly shopping and spreading germs when I had COVID. I was on a mission to take care of my dad. And so, like I said, wouldn't have mattered if I had a fever of whatever. If I needed to get something for him, I would have done it. So, yeah. Okay. I know I don't have to explain myself, but it just got me thinking, you know? Uh, yeah, some people are saying, we love you. Wish I had known of your illness to pray. I get that. In the beginning, I'm just going to be honest with you, I was barely communicating. So there were a few people who knew I was sick, but I think it wasn't until, I think I finally said something on my Telegram channel, and then the news kind of spread around like wildfire, and I had people messaging me and saying, "Oh my gosh, I heard you were sick," that kind of thing. Okay, yeah. Somebody said I see people go to work when they're clearly very sick. All of a sudden, it's a problem. That's a good question. Let me just say something about that. When I was teaching before COVID hit, it was like a point of honor to go to work when you were practically on your deathbed. It didn't matter if you, I mean, in fact, it was frowned upon because I actually had a lot of respiratory issues. I would get I would get bronchial asthma very easily, sinus infections, things like that. I kind of grew out of it, but when I was teaching, I I tried to get ahead of things like that, and so if I felt symptoms coming on, I would call in. And those of you who have been in teaching for a long time, you know the condemnation and guilt that just gets heaped on you if you call out and you need a sub. And my thinking was, if I call in sick today at the beginning and I get a handle on this and I nip it in the bud, I'll be back tomorrow. That's not the way they thought in the system. They would literally rather you just slog through and don't call out at all, even when you're like sitting in the classroom with a box of tissues and sneezing your way through the day and just spreading your germs and getting everybody sick. Those of you who are in teaching, you know what I'm talking about. I think it's the same in the medical profession, like lots of places. Until COVID hit, that was the mindset, is that, unless you're missing a limb, or you're like your house is on fire, you show up to work and you don't get a sub. And then people would send their kids to work sick too. I had this happen all the time. I had kids who would come in. I taught kindergarten and first grade a lot. And I would have kids who came in, and I could tell instantly if a kid had strep. You can smell it. And, I'd call the parents and I'd say, Tyler has strep throat, I'm pretty sure. Can you come and get him and take him to the doctor? He's running a fever. I'm pretty sure he has strep. And they're usually at work. So they're like, okay, I'll come and get him. So I kid you not, the parents would come and get the kid, take him, get the rapid test. Remember when they came out with the rapid test for strep? They get the rapid test, get the kid on one dose of antibiotics, and bring him back to school the same day. That was how it worked. Now, I would have actually preferred that they keep them home for at least 24 hours, but that wasn't the case. Now they are, now, like if your kid is in school and somebody in their class tests positive for COVID, your kid has to quarantine for 14 days. It's insane. People have gone insane. So going back to the idea of, how I was out there, like, spreading germs. I just did what I had to do. Because we went from a whole, we went from a system where you literally like dragged yourself to work on your deathbed to, oh my gosh, you better not go out because you might be carrying germs. That we flipped from that to that, put a mask on your face, even though you're perfectly healthy, because you might be getting other people sick. The mindset, it didn't even take 2 years for the propaganda machine to change people's mindsets about that. Yeah, it's crazy. People have gone insane. It is a collective madness. Now, I think I'm gonna end the show here. There's some other things I wanted to talk about, but I just got a little bit deeper into that topic. Let's see. Pay attention to Wisconsin, to what's going on in Wisconsin with these nursing home voter fraud situation. The best way to get that information right now is to go to Praying Medic's timeline on Telegram. He might actually do a news update about that. He's been doing little video updates of the news certain days, several days a week. He has been doing kind of a play-by-play of that situation. It's very interesting, and I think that I think what's been happening is that we've had such a big focus on Georgia and on Maricopa County, which are essential, that everybody forgot about what was going on in Wisconsin. And this case came forward, and I think it's going to be really consequential. So it's kind of not surprising to me that the information is coming out. It follows the pattern that we've seen with President Trump, which is, there's always something going on in the background. There's always something going on in the foreground that's distracting from other big stuff that's going on in the background. And I think this is one of those situations. It's all of a sudden it's like, it's all of a sudden it's like, uh, it's like, um, it's like, oh, Wisconsin, big time voter fraud, really bad situation, lots of federal laws broken, felonies committed. Huh. We kind of forgot about that. Now, those of you who were paying attention back in January of this year will remember that I think it was the Amistad Project. They brought this up. They were talking about what was going on in Wisconsin. So RSBN broadcasted. I think One America News also broadcast the hearing with the sheriff. And yeah, so yeah. Okay, Tom said you did the right thing. That's commendable. What does that mean? You like when I called out sick before I was actually like on my deathbed. Okay, so check on the Wisconsin story. And one quick thing. There's been a lot of questions up in the air about people are thinking that they're being told by certain personalities not to vote until the system is fixed. Like, just don't vote at all. And President Trump put out a statement today to clarify this, because a week or so ago, he put out a statement basically saying that if we don't fix what happened in 2020, it's likely that people aren't going to vote. And so he clarified this today, and I think it's important that people understand this, because he said, hold on, let me find his statement. And this is something that, okay, he said, the statement that I made a few weeks ago saying that Republicans will not vote if the election fraud of 2020 is not fixed was in no way meant to imply that I would tell them not to vote, but rather that they may not have the incentive to vote if the election process is not fully remedied and quickly. It was the crime of the century. We are working on solving that problem every day. It will be done. People do not want to spend their time and money to have a scam like that happen again. Regardless of anything or anyone, we must get out the Republican and sane vote. Okay, so that is a call from your commander-in-chief, your president, saying vote. And so if there's any confusion about that, just, he is not saying don't vote. What he is saying is, what he's saying is that the people are feeling disillusioned, and that it's likely that they may not want to vote. That's very different from saying don't vote. Okay. Now, we do need to turn out in massive numbers so that the fraud that they're contemplating 24/7 is harder to perpetrate. I mean, if the Republicans just stay home, then they're getting what they want. Like, they don't even have to cheat then, right? That's just, don't do that, okay? To answer April's question on Facebook, April, you don't have to go to cable news to watch anything. There are a number of channels that are giving you the news. So frankspeech.com is one of them. Praying Medic on Telegram, he has a channel. He does news updates several times a week. steeltruth.com is another source. They do a show 5 nights a week at 9 p.m. on their website. Who else, guys? RSBN on YouTube. I think they have a Facebook page as well. There's tons of sources. Can you guys reply on Facebook to April, anybody that's on Facebook, and let her know some of the places that she can go to get the news? Okay. So listen, I will be back on Monday. Thank you guys for your patience. Thank you for faithfully watching and writing and sending in information. I am going to post the notes from yesterday's show about the protocol and the things that we did in our family to prepare for when we got COVID. And so that is going to be, all those notes are going to be on the notes on the information section on the YouTube video from yesterday. I will put it in the comment section on the Facebook. And if I can fit it on the Cloud Hub description, I'll do that. So just make sure that you are that you're checking all of that. All right. The Hill, yeah, Epoch Times is a good one. I mean, there's so many sources. Somebody's asking about Barley George. Okay, Barley George is doing really well. You guys want to see some pictures of him? So in the time that I was sick, oh, okay, Millie, Delia already sent me the information. Thank you, Delia. So this is what happened when I was sick. Barley was just lying on the carpet waiting for me to get better. I'll show you. It's really sweet. This was Barley when I was sick, just lying there for hours and hours. He's so big. And then this is him keeping vigil over my dad when my dad got sick. Hold on. Here they are. He was just sitting there with my dad. So I will tell you that he took advantage of the overall malaise in the house to develop some kind of bad habits. It's like, and he was a little freaked out because we've been, off of our routine, So he's been, I don't know, he's got to get back on his routine too. But he's doing okay. He's a sweetheart. He was lying beside me earlier, but I don't know where he went. Sometimes he hides under the bed. He's not a snuggly cat. I'll be honest with you. Maybe when he gets older, he'll be more snuggly. He likes for me to pick him up and hold him over my shoulder. And he'll do that for, I think the longest time he's ever allowed that is like 2 minutes. And then he's done. So it's kind of like having a little boy, like a 2-year-old. That's where we are with Barley. He wants to snuggle and then he's done. That's Barley. You thought you heard him earlier. No, he hasn't been, he's loud, but he hasn't been around. It might have been the TV. My dad was watching TV. So, but thank you for asking. Yeah, he's a sweetheart. Oh yeah, he's definitely very loving. But it did freak him out a little bit, us being completely off of our game here. I think cats are sensitive. Animals are sensitive. They know when things are just not right. But we're getting there. We're coming back. And so thank you guys. Thank you everybody for your prayers and for being such a good audience and for all of your suggestions and your participation. If you're coming in later at the end, or you're watching this on replay, please make sure you leave comments because it helps the show come up in the feed for other people. And then on Facebook, like the show, but also follow the channel, and then tag people and put the show, share it into groups. On YouTube, subscribe to the channel, hit the thumbs up for the show, and leave a comment. Same thing on Cloud Hub. I'm trying to build up on Cloud Hub. Oh, and by the way, we reached 2,000 followers on the YouTube channel, 2,000 subscribers. So thank you to everybody that helped us do that. And I will tell you that as soon as as soon as President Trump's social media platform comes online, I will be there on Truth Social for sure. Okay, that's it. Come back Monday. I don't know the time yet. I think it's going to be afternoonish. I'm trying not to interfere with the Elijah Streams broadcast. They come on at 2 o'clock Eastern every day. And I actually, a lot of people like to watch that. So I'm trying not to interfere with that. Okay. Thanks again, everybody. Yes, please hit the thumbs up on the YouTube. It really does help when you do that. And when you leave a comment after the fact, it helps. It just makes it move up into the algorithm. Okay. Everybody have a very good evening. And thank you again for being here. Bless you all. Make sure you watch yesterday's show. Make sure you write to me, info@marygracemedia.com, so that you can get information and a promo code for superfoods. There's never been a more important time to take charge of your nutrition. I can't stress that enough. You have to have a good baseline of nutrition so that if you get sick, that you're not behind nutritionally. Okay. All right. Have a good evening, everybody. Take care, and I will see you on Monday.